Wait a few seconds. We'll call the Board of Public Works meeting of Monday, July 6th to order. Number 2, approval of minutes of June 15th. Public Works meeting. Motion by Mr. Bargander. Second by Adam Fisher. Comments, questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. May 18th, 2020 is a closed session meeting. Mr. Fire, motion. Mr. Fisher, second. Comments, corrections? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Citizens' comments. I see no citizens here, so we'll move on to construction update presented by Chris Hawley, Street Superintendent. Chris.
Good evening, everybody. As you can tell, things are moving right along. Hot weather is kind of slowing us down a little bit, but we're making sure the guys are staying hydrated and taking an extra break here and there. As you can see from the latest addition here, Northern Hills is just about completed with the black dirting. We were back on it today. And Northern Hills, that would be North Hills and Wood. Got a couple days left of black dirting and hydro seeding up there. And then the final lift of asphalt is to be scheduled. 4th, Larch to Mulberry. Mulberry 4th to the cul-de-sac. That's all ditched and drain tiled and pulverized already. Along with 13th Adams to Locust and Locust 13th to 14th. Note that 13th from Adams to Locust, they were in there today doing the fine grading. And then we just got to go back in there and raise manholes and water valves. And they just rough graded Locust. There's 2 laterals that have to go in on Locust into the vacant lots. And those are scheduled, I think, for tomorrow. So after that's completed, we'll get that fine graded also and get the water valves and manholes raised and get that one on the schedule to be paved. Everything in the 2019 mill in place projects that needed topsoil are completed except for, no, actually we got them all done. We were up on Ridge, Ives, and Schmidt again today, and they are hydro seeding as we speak right now, and hopefully we won't get 2 inches of rain and lose the ditch again. So we're playing the weather, and hopefully that'll get done. And Severance in Omaha is to be scheduled yet. Asphalt overlays. As you know, Oak, Omaha Street to 14th is now completed. Our paint truck was down last week, but they were out there today to get the arrows done on 14th and Oak and 14th, and that should be done. Peach from 14th is scheduled for asphalt on July 13th, and the concrete crew is on on 14th between Vine and Peach, and Phil is hoping to get that done this week and possibly even do that one asphalt overlay next week. So that moves us into our next project up on McMillan. We're thinking about moving there next, and Phil wants to do a week of miscellaneous work. He's got some catch basins to fix and some storm sewer problems. He wants to take a week and get some of that stuff knocked out and then move up to McMillan on the week of July 27th. The asphalt conversion of Downwind Drive is now completed out by Maps, and that's all paved and topsoiled. It looks pretty good out there. They did the parking lot from the Maps at the same time. They did all that on Friday. Now, the one thing I did miss in the past that I kind of forgot about was Adler Road was a leftover from last year. And it's that last stretch from state to Wisconsin, about 600 feet left. And we're going to get in there and knock that one out next week, starting July 13th. The county is going to be shutting down County Highway Y and pulverizing that. So as long as Y is shut down, we're going to utilize their closure of Y and finish that. We got about 4 days of grading to do out there to get that one ready. So it's 650 feet from state to just west of Wisconsin. Like I said, street painting is ongoing. We were broke down for a little while, but we're back up and running. Good job at it, mechanics. All our sanitary manhole replacements are now completed. The last one we did was on the Adams and 13th intersection, and that also, the patch got paved in on Friday, so that's all opened up again. Some of the miscellaneous work tomorrow, they're gonna be starting on the Upper Pond Zoo Road. I got about maybe 2 days of ditching and tiling to do up there. It's already pulverized. There's a little bit of ditching to do up there, and the crew's headed up there tomorrow to take care of that. Other miscellaneous ditching work that got completed was the airport. The cemetery and armory projects are all done. We do have a little bit of drain tile issue up at the airport yet that we want to get a camera in there to see. We have a good idea of what happened out there when they put in the services to the hangar. I think they crushed our drain tile, but we're going to throw a camera up there to see what's going on. So with that, we had a good last couple of weeks, and things are moving right along. Rain has actually been good, holding off. It looks like it's going to rain every day, but a little bit of rain to help seed the newly topsoiled and areas is good. So with that, I'll entertain any questions.
Any questions for Chris? Okay, thank you, Chris.
Yep.
Next, we'll have Tom Turchi, city engineer. Tom.
All right, we'll start off with the Cleveland Street project. Cleveland from Central to Walnut, all the underground work is completed within those limits. They started actually placing curb and gutter from Central to Walnut on the north side today, and just tied things up just before we got a little bit of rain here. They'll probably finish up the curb and gutter tomorrow on the south side of this section and continue working on concrete in these two blocks. Pine Avenue from Blodgett to Cleveland is, they're working on the underground utilities. Temporary water has been installed. They got to replace sanitary and water main, as well as install some storm sewer. A good portion of the storm sewer has been installed already. So that project is moving along. Oak Avenue from Blodgett to Cleveland and Chestnut Avenue from Cleveland are complete and open to traffic. I have some photos of the projects. I won't, that one's just pretty self-explanatory. Sanitary sewer lining is moving along. Right now they're about 40% complete. The photo that's included is basically them installing a liner on the intersection of Maple and 17th going to the north on Maple Avenue. Galvin Avenue water main project from 22nd to 24th is now complete. They're planning to start 26th Street, Maywood Avenue to Washington Avenue on July 13th. And currently the downwind drive from Central Avenue to Cherry Avenue, not to be confused with the downwind circle or the cul-de-sac that we just spoke about, is scheduled for August 17th. I have included some photos of the overlay project on the 17th and Peach. You can see they used a tool called Mr. Manhole to actually cut the pavement, and they actually cut a circle. It worked good on this first hole, removing the manhole. Took about 40 minutes, but then the teeth were wore out before we got to the second manhole. So it really was a nice try. It just didn't really kind of work the way we had originally planned it. The picture of the machine with the big wheel in the middle, that's the cutting tool that's actually cutting the joints in Peach Avenue and 17th. And there's a photo of what it looks like after they've cut those joints and after the street department has cleaned those joints. And then finally, the last couple photos are what those joints look like after we've filled them with concrete again. This project, the wheel cutting and everything else was kind of pushed by Tim Cassidy from our office and try something totally different to see if we could expedite the project and get it moving faster. So that's basically the bulk of the projects I have. I will take any questions if you have them.
Mr. Fire.
I have a question on what do they use for a binder on the edges of that gap that they got to, what do they put on it to get that to bind?
Well, there's enough texture left with the cutting wheel that it actually holds up pretty well. And you can see in the photo, there's a little bit of a void underneath where they cleaned out and at those joints. So it actually held together pretty well. All they do is kind of wet the edges down and then it kind of just adheres to the adjacent slab.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Tom. Number 5, approval of directional signs in the public right-of-way for Packaging Corporation of America, known as PCA, presented by Dan Connect, Director of Public Works. Dan.
Thank you. This item actually came through the Plan Commission last week. Last week, maybe it was the week before even. And so this has already been through the council agenda, through the consent agenda, but the code requires the Board of Public Works to approve any private signs in the public right-of-way. We don't have these very often, but this is a situation where it seemed appropriate to help direct some of the truck traffic that they're getting into their site. If we go to the map here, it kind of shows the location. Their primary building faces Galvin Avenue, and they have an entrance there for employees and visitors, but their truck entrance is off of Yellowstone Drive to the south here. So the deliveries do get confused from time to time and end up going into their parking lot entrance or even going further north and into other areas of the industrial park out there that cause confusion and get trucks where they don't belong. So PCA has asked if they could put some signage in the public right-of-way, 2 spots, one along for northbound Galvin and one southbound, directing their deliveries to use Yellowstone Drive. And it's going to be just a simple sign that says something to the effect of receiving, PCA receiving an arrow. The Plan Commission did review this and recommended approval. There's some basic conditions with that, and those are that maximum of 1 sign in each direction. Signs may not exceed 10 square feet in area, and the exact location may be modified as they see how things. So with that, I'd recommend approval by the Board of Public Works of this alternative sign permit request by Packaging Corporation of America with conditions as noted.
I have a motion by Mr. Fisher, second by Mr. Fire. Questions? Mr. Bargender.
What color is the sign going to be? Is it going to look like a regulatory sign, or is it special, their colors, or what, do you know?
Well, that's a question that hasn't come up yet, so I don't know if their rendering here is just a black and white sign, or if they're gonna try to use some colors that are consistent with their logo. I'm not sure. If that's important to you, I can find out and let you know. Okay, but I don't know.
Anybody else? Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Number 6, approval of truck purchase for engineering division, presented by Chris Hawley, Street Superintendent. Chris.
Good evening again. This is on behalf of the engineering division. We didn't meet much in late March and April. We kind of got shut down, so got a couple vehicles left to purchase, and the big 3 automotive industries just started back up in June. So I'll get this one out to you guys. This is a purchase that was approved in the 2020 budget. It's the current Ford Ranger number 81. It's a 20 years old. It's starting to show some deterioration in the frame and the body. Some of the stuff that we've done to it, we put a new starter in it. Goes through a battery about every other year, it seems like, because it sits in the wintertime. Of course, tires, sway bar length, transmission is starting to show its age. So it is 20 years old and it's in need of replacement. Talking with Tom, his thought was to go with the Chevy Silverado 1500. State bid on that from Ewald was $26,460. Again, I talked with Wheelers and he said he would meet or beat that bid, and he did by a couple $100 for $26,171. It's a Chevy 1500 4x4 with a 6.5-foot box, and then in the box they have a thing called a highway products package that can fit all your survey equipment in, and rods and stake and lath. It's pretty, and it's pretty well weatherproofed. We did go talk to Highway Products. They gave us a bid for just delivery for $8,681 And then we talked to Monroe and they said they would get that same product for us installed for $8,734. So with that, I recommend approval for the Chevy Silverado bid from Wheelers for $26,171 and to have Monroe Truck Equipment purchase and install the highway product package for $8,734 for a total of $34,905. And in the 2020 budget, we budgeted $35,000.
Do I have a motion? Motion by Mr. Fire, second by Mr. Rosendich. Comments or questions? Mr. Bargan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I looked at this and I see that that truck only gets 36,000 miles in 20 years. And in the interest of saving money in this tight budget year and tight 2021, I think the city needs to look into repurposing our police trucks and SUVs into these departments, where feasible, of course. And I was thinking that, you know, if this truck lasted 20 years, but only had 36,000 miles on, it doesn't really matter when they're 20 years old if they've got 36,000 miles on or 126 or 136,000 miles on, because they're basically junk, right? So I'd like to defer this purchase and look into repurposing a police or SUV vehicle for this use. I just think it makes sense. I really do. To sell our police vehicles basically at auction, which is wholesale. Okay, we're getting, I don't remember the numbers, but it was somewhere, I think the police chief mentioned $15,000 or something like that. It would be a considerable savings, even if we had to add that box that for $8,000, we'd still save a considerable amount. And like I said earlier, if that truck, okay, these trucks off the PD have about 70,000 miles on, if I recall, when they auction these things off. So you add 36,000 to it in 20 years, the vehicle's only got about 116,000 miles on it. These are full-size pickup trucks. I mean, they go 200,000 miles easily, or even the SUVs should go 200,000 miles easily. I'd just like to defer this till we get some information on repurposing our police vehicles into our other departments where it's feasible. Thank you.
Mr. Fire.
I have to say is that this comes out of the equipment fund, correct?
Correct.
So this is not, you can save all the money you want, but it's not the fund you can use for other uses. It's made for one thing. It was made to buy equipment. So, you know, you could wait a year or 2 years either way, but you're going to have to buy one. And I guess this is something that a little bit different than now when you go police cars and squad cars. Those run 24 hours a day. They never shut off in the winter. They run all the time. So you can say they got 70,000 miles, but they got about 170 plus on that engine. That engine never stops in the winter. So I think what you're buying with this is a problem, because you get to a certain point, labor will kill you. Just parts and labor. It's the worst thing in the world. So I guess I disagree with deferring this, because it's not an item that you can defer and use that money in a tight budget, because you can't use that money for anything else. It's not set up that way.
Mr. Bark.
Yeah, I have talked to police chief, chairman, fire police, ready to run a call together. We talked about some of the concerns that have been discussed at the CIP meeting.
Is your mic on, Steve?
Oh, it's not. I'm sorry. I'm not used to being part of this.
I can hear him just fine.
Yeah. No, I'll be way too loud for you, Chris. I'm sorry. I apologize. Thanks, Tom. I did have a conversation that involved the police chief and the chairman of the Fire and Police Commission, Randy Gershman, the other day, where we talked about some of the issues that were raised by council at the CIP meetings. We focused mainly on vehicles, especially the investigator car, and talked a little bit about that. We talked about the squads. We also talked a little bit about the ordnance vehicle, how often that needs to be replaced, and if there's other uses for that when it comes out of service. I'm not familiar with the type of vehicles that Ken is referring to here that would be more suitable to what Chris is looking at. But you will see when we come back to the next CIP meeting that there has been a little potential headway made in some of the vehicle issues. But like Mike said, the internal service fund that streets and parks pay into is intended to cover these costs over time.
Chris, you had a comment? Go
I
ahead.
did, yeah. And one of the things that we learned, one of the last purchases we did for engineering when I was still in the engineering department, we did a SUV, and the Tahoe, wasn't it, Tom?
Yeah.
And it's just not real ideal to work out of because of you got your back doors and you have your side doors and you can't get at anything in the middle. So this was kind of Tom's request, is to get something that was a little bit more operative for his needs. So basically that highway pack that goes in the back of that truck, you can reach everything, the drawers pull out, you can get everything in the middle, and it's pretty unique box insert for that type of application.
Anybody else? Dan?
Yeah, Chris, I'm just curious, if we were to delay this, is there a limit on how long these quotes are good for?
They'll be good till the end of the year.
They would be, okay.
Yeah, so basically, these are 2021 vehicles already now. So we're getting 2020 prices for a 2021
Okay.
vehicle.
Do you know what the delivery time was on these?
Anywhere between 8 and 12 weeks.
Oh, big, that's
Yeah.
what, out there.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm thinking is, I don't know a whole lot about the condition of the vehicles that come off the line from the PD. If a pickup truck would be available, that would fit our needs here. Maybe we could consider it. As Chris mentioned, I don't know that the SUV is the right thing for us. We did try one of those. We have one parked out here and we've learned it's not quite right for us, but I guess I wouldn't be opposed to, coming back in 2 weeks after we could look at the PD vehicle. If there isn't one available, this season, then I would ask that we would go ahead with this purchase. But, we're this far into the season already and we could find one that has not got a lot of mechanical problems and they're ready to get rid of one anyway. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world.
In the past, we have purchased vehicles from the PD. I remember number 7, the previous blue Impala was from the police department. That one didn't have airbags that worked in it, and there were 2 other things that were wrong or broken on that car that never got fixed the entire time we had it in our division. So it's sometimes a safety issue too when you're dealing with some of those cars.
Mr. Bartender?
No, Tom, I totally understand that. We're not talking cars, we're talking full-size 4-wheel drive crew cab pickups. And they're built a lot heavier duty, V8 engines versus, and they're 4-wheel drive. I just believe, I was in the car business for 25 years, and I believe that these trucks have a lot more life in them than just 70,000 miles, regardless how many hours they idle. Idling doesn't wreck an engine. I mean, they're lubricated, but maintenance is the big thing. I mean, I hope that these vehicles are maintained. Usually the warranties are at least 70,000 miles on these pickup trucks. It's a whole different animal than a car. I just think, maybe it isn't the right fit for this application, but I think this should just be a start where we start thinking about repurposing, especially those 4-wheel drive crew cab pickup trucks. I just hate to see them go wholesale when there has to be some applications here in town where these trucks don't get a lot of miles, they don't leave the city. There's got to be 10 more years in these trucks easily or more. That's my point. I guess maybe if it doesn't fit this one, that's fine. But I think we need to look forward and consider this, okay? We're going to be having, I don't care where the money is or where it comes from. It's still money, right? I mean, it doesn't matter, right? It's still taxpayers' money. And we should be looking at, repurposing these vehicles. I know Wisconsin Rapids does. You could maybe talk to someone down there and see how, what luck they've had with their police vehicles. But I really think we should start looking into it. Years ago, I agree. The cars didn't hold up. They had a lot of problems with them. Probably not a good idea. But we've been dealing with these pickup trucks now for, 7, 8 years. I think they've had pickup trucks. And I just can't see wholesaling them and then buying retail back or whatever, discounted retail, however you want to look at it. So like I said, I just think this should be the first step in discussion, talk about repurposing some of these vehicles into our fleet. Thank you.
Chris?
Yeah, just one last thing. In the past too, my predecessors before me would actually, for some of the assessors and the engineering vehicles and building services, they would go out to Associated Sales and Leasing or buy something used. And they were always kind of a maintenance headache after that. So just, I don't think we've ever repurposed a police or fire vehicle that I'm aware of besides the car that Tom was talking about. Whenever we purchase something new, it always seemed to be, or used from a car dealership, it always seemed to be a maintenance headache. And if this sways your vote, it's silver metallic. The color.
You know, I'm not sure, like Ken says, that this one maybe is not the right fit. But I gotta take what Dan is saying. It doesn't hurt to push it back 2 weeks to look at that. And I would want a safety inspection to make sure everything's working on it so we didn't run into those issues and go from there. I think we should explore it.
Yeah, I agree with you on what Dan said too. I mean, it never hurts to take a look at it. Oftentimes the police vehicles are taken out of service and they may be possibilities for other city departments. I know when they go to auction, they maybe get a couple thousand for it, and that's, better than nothing. And some of the wear and tear, as Mike said, is pretty hard on some of the vehicles, but it's always worth looking to see if there's, 2-3 years of useful life before we just pedal them. So I think Dan's suggestion is a wise one.
Anybody else? Dan?
So we do have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the purchase.
Right.
So you either vote on that motion and vote it down, or maybe a better motion would be to delay action on that motion until the next.
Mr. Bargander?
I would amend that motion to defer till the next meeting.
Second by Mr. Fisher. Comments, questions? All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Chris.
Yep.
Number 7, closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute Chapter 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. This is about sale of a land near Park and Oak Avenue. Motion to go into closed session. Mr. Bargander, second by Mr. Rosendich. Roll call, please.
Fisher.
Yes.
Butke.
Yes.
Bargander. Yes. Rosendich.
Yes.
Fire.
Yes.
We are in closed session.
Tim, could you get the door, please?